shit is crazy.
They took that girl. They took that girl. They took that girl.
LMPD.
Do you feel safe back there, Mr. Officer?
It don't matter what color they are. They on the same thing. DJ. Go justice, stand for justice, stand for justice, go justice, stand for 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 justice.
They took that girl. 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 What about they took that girl. 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 They took that girl.
Justice.
Although I have my vest with me right now, you have to put it on. But today's action brings us to the Nulu area. But today's action brings us to the Nulu area. But today's action brings us to the Nulu area. But today's action brings us to the Nulu area.
They're right here! They're
Time will tell. Time will tell. Time will tell. Time will tell.
We're very happy to welcome Teddy Abrams, who just gave a world premiere of Can't Stop the Revolution. Teddy, that was really a whole new palette for you, right?
Yeah. That's it's all built on samples from the protests that have been going on in Louisville, Kentucky, where I live. My job is as music director of the Louisville Orchestra, and actually I live right in a very busy part of the city called Nulu, where there have been all kinds of protests. In fact, there was a particular event called the Battle of Nulu right outside my house. 76 people were arrested. And I thought that in light of everything that's going on, and especially with the Breonna Taylor case ongoing, I wanted to dive into something that spoke a little more directly about the experience of being here right now. And I call it a little like a sound film, because it's supposed to make you feel like you're actually in the environment of what these things feel like when you're on the ground.
Well, it's the first time, I don't know, maybe you've recorded before, but did you have to get special equipment? I mean, were you going out with holding a recorder? I mean, how did you capture these sounds?
So I actually asked this wonderful gentleman named Maxwell Mitchell, who has been chronicling every single protest since day one. And he has an incredible library of footage. And in fact, if you saw in the New York Times when they featured footage of the complete lineup of Louisville protests, that was all from him. And he's actually a musician and hosts a music series in town. And I reached out to him. I said, would you be okay if I created samples from it? And Julia, you'll actually know, I reached out to Gabe Globus Honig, and I said, I've compiled all these samples, but I don't know which ones to choose, because I have maybe 30 hours of footage of some ridiculous amount. I said, I need you to be objective about this. You're going to assign them. I'm going to load it into the keyboard and then compose something. I want to like have a new palette to work with. And I said, make some funny, make some serious, make some thought provoking. And then I started building the actual, obviously the whole piece of music, which actually has themes in it. You know, it's not just kind of a steady stream of consciousness. There are motives and weird things like that that actually get tossed around. Although it would sound pretty weird on just a normal piano.
Fantastic.
Well, that was one of the really interesting things for me is that, you know, it's like we're going back between screens from this Zoom session and the Zoom session that has the performance in it. And so when I first saw your performance, I just saw you playing keyboard, and then I had to turn the sound up. And then I was immediately there with you, kind of as an observer listening to these protests. So it really worked.
That was what I was hoping. And there are tons of layers, like even deeper down from what you can really perceive. Even the rhythmic things are tiny little samples from the protest. So there are just little percussive things that make it almost sound like Latin drumming or something like that. Because when you're in these, I mean, I don't know if any of the viewers have been, I'm assuming many folks here have at least observed them somewhat closely. I mean, there's a combination of a very musical element to it, but also then quickly it can descend into chaos when the cops generally advance and do so very quickly. And that's exactly what happened outside my front door, basically. It was something that was very more or less positive, and it was, you know, kind of a musical chanting. Then it quickly turned into people running around, cops, you know, breaking down barricades. Then the next thing that you know, everyone's, you know, scattering, and 70-something people are in chains. So it's really, you know, I tried to kind of evoke what it feels like, is chronicling that is such an important thing for artists, I think, especially in Kentucky, where nothing like this has happened in a very long time, not since the 60s, anywhere near this scale.
A lot of your work is connecting, you know, you're connecting to the community there in Louisville. Your big piece on Muhammad Ali, of course, he was from Louisville also. And what's going to be the outlet for this piece, and when are the hometown folks going to get to hear this?
I have to figure that out, because I do feel like, you know, I think we all struggle to figure out what our artistic voices are in a moment like this, especially, you know, given our, you know, the general world of orchestras and classical music and the way that might be perceived, maybe a little separate from the more living composers world. And I really am encouraging everybody to do what they can to express themselves using their art, because so much of the warfare going on social media, I think, isn't where especially artists like us express ourselves best and have the greatest ability to communicate. And so I don't want to do it necessarily all nail on the head, but there is an element to this kind of like combination of journalism and music and spirit of togetherness that needs to be dealt with as a local. You know, I feel like my first responsibility is the people that I live amongst, and to do what I can to give them some, I don't know if it's reassurance, but at least a sense of connection and communion. And so we'll see. I've got to find a way to get this out there, because I think, you know, we need the art right now more than ever.
Well, I felt that even like pre-COVID, just observing your very deep connection to community there, you know, just from the few times I've been out there, and you're talking to the older community, to the young kids. I mean, it's really, anyway, just want to say it's a great model for music to not just exist in a bubble, and to be understanding that what the dialogue is with the people who are living immediately right there. So anyway.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do. I mean, the Louisville Orchestra has a really special history with living composers in particular, and it's the identity of the orchestra to commission and then perform and re-perform or even record the works by living composers. And so it's in the DNA of the audience to love anything that's new, something built for them. It's very unusual. You would not expect that, but this is an orchestra that put out, you know, 120 albums, mostly comprised of all new music that they commissioned here. And Michael and Julia, you know, I mean, you saw what happens when I mean, a normal concert for us was, I mean, not totally normal, but when we did, you know, Rise and Fly and Natural History, and then, you know, the project with Jim James on the same concert, like that, people are used to that. They like that energy and excitement. And I mean, I think that's one of the most dynamic things about this place that I'm trying to get other people to know, because if you haven't seen it, you wouldn't really believe it. It doesn't sound like the numbers add up. Why in Louisville would they like that? You know, what about it? But it's really true. And I think that's the way forward, which is, you know, if these institutions are to survive, it's got to be with living artists creating music and art for the now. I think that's the only way.
As a teenager, I remember discovering those records, those LPs that the Louisville Orchestra put out. I know David probably had every one of them.
I'm an LP collector, so I have 100 of them, because if you're interested in contemporary American music, and or also music from everywhere, but also, you know, specifically American music, who else is going to be recording that piece by Wallingford Rieger that you've been looking for your entire life? So,
right.
So I have a lot of those records.
Thing. Well, and you're right. I mean, much of that music has only been recorded by the Louisville Orchestra. And I mean, it was this crazy idea. I think it speaks to the civic nature of even how I see my role. The mayor of Louisville back then got together with the music director of the orchestra, who'd come from being a federal, one of the WPA music directors up in Chicago. And they got together and they plotted this ridiculous idea to get tons of money from the Rockefeller Foundation. I mean, on the order of like $5 million today. And they spent it all on living composers and recording them, because they thought if you played the pieces more than once, people would want to hear them in the repertoire. The problem was so much new music was being played once, and the Rockefeller Foundation wanted to counter that. And they got the money. I have this letter from Virgil Thompson saying, "Don't give the Louisville Orchestra this money. They wouldn't know what to do with it." But they got it done, and look at it's a testament to a remarkable period in American musical history.
I want to pick up on one other thing that you just said, because it's something I think of all the time, which is that, you know, about how important it is to value commission and to value music being written right now. There's a lot of discussion in the music world right now about what the music world should look like. You know, we're trying to expand the way classical music works, and we're trying to build bridges to different kinds of communities. And there's a lot of discussion about what has been the past of classical music. Who are the composers that we've forgotten? Who are the composers that we've ignored? But to me, what seems really beautiful is that if we're going to build the world that we all want to live in, we're the people who can do it. You know, like we have living musicians right now and living composers. And if you want to see the change in the world, you can pay for it. You can commission it. You can build it. It's the fast and best and most honest way to change the world.
I could not agree anymore. I think the balance of older music to modern music, whatever you want to call it, is so unbelievably skewed the wrong way. I mean, I always tell people, if most of what Beethoven had in his lifetime was, you know, 15th century music from a completely different continent, there'd be no Beethoven. I mean, it's really, we have to move forward from this idea of plugging in new music and living composers here and there. It needs to be the default setting. I really believe that. I mean, I would love nothing more than to be able to hear Beethoven in the historical context. And it doesn't diminish the greatness of great composers from the past. It doesn't take away from that at all. It's just hearing their music in the context of a mostly living art form would enrich it so much, rather than the culture of playing it over and over and over again until orchestras are just, you know, going through the motions, and audiences already have decided an interpretation that's the best one. It's not what I'm looking for in a musical society. And I think, you know, you all represent the best of what could be here. And I mean, I think it's time for the big institutions to take that up and try it. They haven't tried it. That's the thing. They haven't really tried it. Maybe they'd like it.
Well, Teddy, what we really liked was Can't Stop the Revolution. Thank you so much. I want to thank Stephen Block and Raulee Marcus, who helped support the piece. And I want to thank you for playing it and chatting with us today. It's really great to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a huge honor to be a part of this. Thank you. Thank you.
And Teddy, thank you so much.
Thank you.